Greetings, Darklings, from across the interweb. It is once again I, Precious Ken the Duchess, and I have with me my faithful companion.
It is I, Katy. I attempted draping today. I don't know if it worked, but here we are.
I like it. I like the draping. I'm gonna have to learn about that one, and maybe we can drape me for our upcoming TikTok videos or something like that. You know, that could be dope.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start this one. We did this last time too, with an unboxing where I've received a mysterious package from a mysterious stranger, and we're gonna find out what's inside. I mean, I think we know it's a record at this point, but what record? Oh. This is a re-release that's now on vinyl that was sent to me by Matt of the electronic dance band Clack with Eric. And ooh, it's even signed. Oh, that was so sweet. But introducing the 1984 Renault Le Car. And you can see a review of this on Sounds and Shadows webpage, so check it out. But I can't wait to be spinning this vinyl. Oh, they even numbered it. That's really cool. 95 out of 100. So I don't think you have a chance to get this anymore, but maybe because they all sold out, they'll do another pressing. Ah, lovely. Now, I'm extremely excited to introduce, we have an amazing guest with us. Miss CZARINA, hello and welcome to the podcast.
Hello, guys. How are you?
We're good. We're really excited to have you here. I think your music is something, well, I find really exciting and really upbeat. I think I first heard about you from Jean-Marc Letterman is the first thing that you came across my field of vision. But it's a little different from some of the stuff that we have on the show. So why don't we start out by you telling me a little bit about your history in music and what you do to give our viewers an idea that might not be as familiar with you.
Okay. Well, I started a project in 2018. I've always been a musician and but also a designer. But I did the last couple of decades focus more on design and in fashion, and then my life changed a little bit in 2017 and decided to pursue music, and I wanted to do a retro neon noir type of project, not necessarily like super 80s, but I was really inspired by Vangelis's Blade Runner work, and it has that like nice beautiful smoky vibe. And at the same time, being an industrial music lover, a progressive metal lover, I wanted elements of that harder edge mixed in with synths. So that's how I started the CZARINA project. And basically had my first single and first record come out in 2018. So it's not a very, very long project yet.
Sure.
Yeah. And then and ever since then, I got introduced first in the synthwave community because of a lot of the 80s references, and then and it was a lot of fun, and but I really wanted to go back more in my industrial proggy rock roots and bring more a lot of like symphonic elements. So I'm working on my new record now, which will have a lot of more symphonic, more chamber, type of arrangements, instrumentations mixed with electro. So I'm exploring a new world right now with a new kind of sound, and I'm really, really excited about that.
See, that's awesome. And so there's a couple things I want to unpack and talk about there. But one is I really love the way that you describe, when I hear your music, I don't think of it as a band. You have the vibe a lot more of kind of when you keep saying symphonic, a composer. Like I hear your music a lot and I hear composer in the sense that it's so many textured environments kind of coming together, and it kind of has a classical feel to it. Even the dancey electronic stuff. Is that something that you really go for, and maybe that's just it? How would you describe yourself as a performing artist, as a composer, how do you think of yourself when you're making music?
I feel like, I grew up in New York, and I actually have a very eclectic background in the
Yeah,
field. And actually, my first, like when I was 12, 13, I was actually being trained for Broadway. So I think a lot of what you're hearing was all subliminal, like, from that time when I was really exposed to Hans Zimmer and all these amazing composers. I was
sure.
auditioning for Miss Saigon before their final season. So a lot of that was definitely ingrained, and I'm a classically trained singer. Um, and I do have a theatrical aspect to my music, to my production, to how I make my music videos, how I present myself as an artist. I and it's interesting that you said layers, and I'm all about layers because I do like taking like this whole amalgam of inspirations that I've come across like over the couple of decades. Like, it could be something that I would be referencing from Bowie or Blondie or, from Meshuggah. Like it just, I felt like I've always been at this intersection of many different things, and that's just how I grew up. Like it's I have some anime and manga type of vibe to some of my visuals, and also I love martial arts. I grew up doing martial arts, and I'm still practicing martial arts. So even in a lot of how I do my storytelling, there's like some sort of badassery in it. So I thought that was it's always like just fun to like mix like all of these things that I've come across. And I'm very very like I try to be culturally proficient, like, and I do absorb things when I travel, when I meet people. Like, I feel like I'm a sponge, and then a lot of these ideas, like, that come from everywhere. I try to neatly package it in this project, so it's not one dimensional, and
Sure.
so it's always going to be evolving, I think, and that's what I love about it.
I think that's really interesting when I hear that from you too, thinking about it. I mean, I know you were from New York, but that you've traveled all over and been a lot of places. And when I hear that, it makes a lot of sense because you kind of pull from so many places, like even single to single, or what I hear that that has a feel of New York. You know what I mean? I mean, such a wide variety of influences and things there. And I really do hear that a lot in your music, which is funny because electronica or something isn't something you always think of as associated with specifically New York. Whereas when you're talking Blondie but it does, it has a very New York electronica feel to your music.
I would take that as a huge compliment because I'm a very proud New Yorker.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky because I'm people. I look young. I know I look young, but I'm actually a lot older. I just turned 40, so I did capture like a little bit of this New York underground culture when it was still very alive. Like back
Sure.
when I was like a teenager, and that really changed me. And I saw how music changed, and I saw how it was to be part of an underground music community. And a lot of these things are very very precious to me. And I'm also like, even with the internet community, like I've always been pushing for that. I've always been protective of that. I've always believed in underground artists and underground music, because I really believe that's where things start, and I saw it in New York, even how like even how neighbors gentrified in New York. It's like it always starts with the underground artists, and just seeing that to me was a very very powerful and eye-opening, that that it's not in the high streets, not in the mainstream, it's all in the underground. And I think it's I feel very lucky that I did get to experience a lot of what that is, back when I was a kid.
Yeah.
What I love about your project is that, like you're saying, it has so many layers to it that it's more than just the music, in my opinion, that it's this high fashion element that makes it extra. And I love how you use things like your makeup or prosthetics to really make it into a full theatrical event. When you first got into the arts, when maybe you were a little kid? Did you start with fashion or with music?
I started with both actually. Like my entire family is very like artistically inclined. Um, and for sure my parents like insisted on art lessons and music lessons and vocals and ballet and dancing like the whole 9 yards. And it was great, but and when I got into high school, you guys know the movie Fame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was my high school, so I got into both music and art, and it actually, like, I saw a fork in the road, and I had to choose between music or art, and I actually ended up choosing art because I thought that there's something foundationally really solid there that I could take on as a career, while I could keep music as a passion.
Sure.
And it's probably one of the best things that I've decided on. So like, I went to an art high school and then went to fashion school. I went to FIT and I studied footwear design. And then from then on, like the whole time I was in bands. Like I had a progressive metal band when I was in my early 20s. It lasted for a few years. And then my career in fashion actually started taking off. And I had to put music on hold for over a decade, and just to focus on fashion and footwear. I ended up starting my own company. So like, I had my own boutiques and my own showrooms, and so I did the whole fashion thing, like really really deep and really focused on it. But I felt like something was missing, like my like there's a part of my soul missing, like, which was music and entertaining and all that stuff. So and I feel like I can't just like shift gears and say goodbye to the whole fashion thing and the arts thing.
Right.
And for sure a lot of that's influencing to a lot of what I do in music. And I'm very 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 conscious of branding and visual imagery. Like, those things are really important to me. I definitely don't take those things for granted. And so a lot of the fashion and art background had been helping out with that as well.
Yeah. Like, go ahead, Katie.
No. You go ahead, Ken.
I was gonna say, I think that's so true, and it's a conversation that's come up, especially for, say, like my scene in goth, right? Since the beginning of time, it's always been either, oh well, you might be into the music, but you don't live the fashion or live the scene or something like that. And then sometimes it swifts back the other way and goes to, oh, these kids, they just care about the fashion or the look of it, but they don't know the music. And I swear to God, I feel like every 5 or 10 years that I've been in the scene, it's flip-flopped between the two. And it's so silly. Like, I never understand, because to me, these are two intricately involved things that there are a lot of reasons that could bring somebody to the scene. And knowing about one or being interested in one is just going to help you find the other, and see kind of all of the aspects of culture. So to me, when I kind of hear you, saying, oh, well, I went to this part of what I was interested in the fashion life or music, to me, I see those as so much one thing, is just a bigger part of kind of an art and culture. And I wondered how you feel about that, and have you ever encountered that, where you got pushback, where people were talking about that you were more interested in the fashion aspect, or people in your fashion industry life didn't understand your passion for music?
I definitely experienced that actually, where this project sometimes in certain, not in every underground community, of course, I feel like actually the goth scene, I love the goth scene.
Sure.
I always respected it, loved it, because I always felt that it's the most perfect form of expression, and the most like, it's most open and welcoming, least judgmental. It's like, do whatever you want, and it's really for the sake of expression. And I really really resonated with that, and I really 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 love that. And going back to what you're asking, like, yes, I have experienced in certain underground scenes where, like, they're they easily brush this project aside because of a lot of its visual elements, and they almost kind of like make an excuse of like, oh, well, she's really just doing it because, like, the visuals and all that stuff. She's not
Yeah.
that serious about the music. Like, I've heard that, I've heard those comments before, and I'm like, you know what? If you listen to the music, if you dissect it, like, there's a lot of nerdiness going on there. There's a lot of music nerdiness. There's a lot of technical elements in there. Just like, odd beaters, polyrhythms. Like, I've studied music, and so
Yes.
it's like, yes, there are those prejudices that arise once in a while, but I feel like it only just pushed me to find the right tribe, the right group of people who
Yeah.
get everything, who really appreciate, music and the whole culture of, like, creating art and everything that's around it. So, yeah, like, I didn't really like think much of it. I'm just like, the way I look at it, I'm like, they just don't get it.
Right.
I'm like, okay, let's just go
I,
move on, find people who get it. They're not
I
just
think that's the biggest thing is I have a hard time, as somebody who knows music a bit too, who could hear your music and think to themselves, like, this isn't someone with technical proficiency. Like, to me, that's one of the, it might not be everybody's cup of tea. That's fine, but you can't not hear that this is well composed, well crafted, and from somebody with a large knowledge base of how music works. I don't know. And I think the only people who couldn't see that would be, well, people that don't actually know how to make music.
I feel like we're also in the age where, there are certain genres now that are, I call them gateway genres, where, and there's also a rise of the quote unquote bedroom producers, and there's nothing
Sure.
wrong with that. I always like, like, hey, if you want to dabble in music, go ahead. But there are, but also know that there are people who've been doing this for quite some time and who've actually learned all the technical elements, like, their theories, they know production,
Sure.
and for me, even, like, I know where my strengths and weaknesses are, and I think, um part of one of the things that I learned when I was actually doing design and when I had the company is that, always make sure that you know your weaknesses, and always get someone to help you, like, cover those grounds. You can't do everything yourself, and I always believe that there are two types of people. There are those who are more creative and who are more about expression and being free, and, like, how they want to go about things, like, how they want to design or compose. And then there are people who are more technical,
Sure.
and, like,
You got to have both. Yeah.
yeah, like, and you need to, like, you can try to be both, but you are stronger in one thing than the other.
Sure.
And, like, as for me, I think I'm a very technical musician, actually, and also a very technical composer. I also love the creative aspect of it, like, mixing genres, like, doing all kinds of textural layers, sound design. But you know what? I am so terrible at mixing and mastering. Like, I'm terrible at, like, more of the finite technical production end of, like,
Yeah.
how do you control those sound waves? How do you control, like, like, how do you filter things properly? Like, and how do you massage all the frequencies so they all work together? That's like a science project. And then there are people out there who are a lot more technical, and they carry that hat really, really well, more so than the creative hat. And I think the most perfect projects know how to, like, meld those two worlds together.
Yeah.
And so these are just things that I'm, like, experiencing, going through, and noticing.
No, for sure. And I always say too, like, yes, the mixing aspect I think is very tight, but mastering, that's just straight up wizard shit. I don't even know how it works, but I think that is more like art than science. It is just I don't know. They listen to something and somehow
They
yeah.
just know how to do it. They have the machines. They know how to. They have the tools. Like, and it's like, it's a whole different world. And and sometimes, like, and I've dabbled in it, and I'm just like, you know what, I could get myself to this, like, up to this point, but someone who knows what they're doing really well really needs to take over, that aspect. I can do the rest of production, I can perform and record and do everything, but like a lot of technical stuff, always best to just give it to someone who knows better.
I think that's a really important thing too. An underrated skill in making art and music is being able to say, like you said, here's where I know that I'm strongest. Here's an area where I'm okay at or good at even, but not the best of someone that I could bring on. And that ability to pass things off and manage and bring in the best people possible to fulfill something, to me, that's a huge aspect in going from one level in art into another, because it's a mirror. You have to look at yourself and hand over a tiny piece of control, but decide that it's what's going to make your baby the most perfect thing it could be, and that's hard.
Yeah, it's like letting go. You gotta let go sometimes, and that's the best thing you can do. Like, learn to let go, learn to let go.
So, okay, I have a question, and it might be a little bit weird, but you were saying that pretty much your entire life has just been like this go, go, go type of thing where you've been very busy and engaged in projects all the time. So with this last year where everything kind of came to an abrupt halt, what kind of things did you get into that you're now drawing into your new album?
Well, the biggest thing that changed this past year because of the pandemic, well, number one, I left New York. I am in Spain now. So that was a big thing. We weren't like, my husband and I weren't planning on moving to Spain till much later. Like, our families are based here and we've always had homes here. So it's always been such a great safety net of something, like a pandemic might happen, and the pandemic did take away a lot of the things that I was buried in New York. And so I thought it was, okay, you know what, this whole thing sucks, but you know what, I think it's time for us to kind of just start life over. So that was the one major thing that happened to us. And then as soon as I moved to Spain, so we're living in Galicia, and Galicia is like the highlands of Spain. It has like a very Druid, Celtic, history, which is really unique. And I really felt that. And it's so strange. Like, when I moved here, like I had a calling, and I thought it was, really, really weird. But then I kind of started feeling, I started feeling it, and I wanted it to translate into my art. And so on my new record, I was going from neo-noir, synthwave, industrial mix to like dark electro with giant symphonic, organic, gothic choir sounds, and like, all like there's a lot more layers. And so the sound is a lot more massive, and also compositionally, there's a lot of cultural elements in it that's been borrowed from this region. And so stuff like that really, 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 really affected me, and I felt like I had to do something with this, like, with all these experiences and all this information, like, I need to put out an album that kind of centers around that. And also my new music video that's coming out on August 6th, it definitely, it talks about that experience, and it definitely has a lot of that cultural element, from this.
And that's called Wonderland, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I haven't had the chance to travel much around the world, but when I have, my favorite thing to do is do like these history tours where you learn about the region and perhaps some of the folklore. Was there something that you learned when you got there that, like, you've obviously said that there's like a lot of things that you've like brought in from the area that you want to bring into this album, but was there anything like that you wouldn't mind kind of sharing the story of now?
Well, yeah, well, not a particular folklore, but overall, this region is known for being the land of witches, witchcraft, and warlocks and paganism. and they still celebrate a lot of what that is. Actually, they have like this regional beauty pageant that happens every year, and I think it's like the Witch of the Year or something.
What?
Awesome.
Yeah, it's like yeah, Galicia is like such a badass, super gothic region of
I know
Spain.
that I'm going to be YouTubing later Galicia Witch of the Year pageant. Like
Yeah,
that's, I'm
like
going to
yeah,
find.
there's yeah, I forgot exactly what it's called in Spanish, but but there's a lot of what that is, and also in their like in their common aesthetic, like and even back in the day, um you see all these like photographs of older Galician women like just wearing all black, and then they have like a cauldron somewhere and like in their farms. It's like it's really cool, and I'm like, yeah, I found my home.
That's super
Yeah.
awesome.
So metal and it's so gothic.
So yeah, you say that like the metal and gothic too. So the image, I mean, all of your imagery for your singles, for the, I mean, it does. We talked about like the fashion and the way it's in there. This one in particular, like really struck me. And it's this cool image of kind of, I don't know, this like goddess figure, but it has a mixture of like techno, uh, you know, kind of armor, but then with a silk and these horns, but then also kind of like this cybernetic visor. It's such a like cool, wild blending. Can you tell me a little bit about kind of, I don't know, how you put together all these elements and what your goal was and how it matches up with what the song is going to be?
I definitely felt like I needed to convey the sound of this record visually, and I think this is like one like this single particularly for Wonderland, and Wonderland was written in honor of Galicia. It's actually a song about Galicia, or at least like how I perceive Galicia, and and it it's dark, so it has electronic elements, so there you go, that's where like a lot of that cyber-esque feel, like, you know, a lot of that, those hard metals that you see in the image, and the color palette, like, you know, that's where we borrowed it from, and we kept it neutral, black and white monochrome, because we wanted it to still feel not too futuristic but still organic at the same time.
Yeah.
And then and a lot of the nature inspired, like, you know, backdrop, I mean, that's actually Galicia in there in the backdrop, like we just
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, we just process the images to make it look like that. um it's, yeah, I think it's the best representation of what the sound is, where you do have your electronic elements or futuristic elements and a lot of the organic elements in the sound. So I mean, I had lots of violins, some cellos, some timpanis, taiko drums in the record, and yeah, like a gothic choir that I had to sing each part for. and
Awesome.
and just to create that hugeness, you know, and but still it's being carried with this electronic undercurrent, like these bass arps, like, you know, underlining it, to give it that modern sound. So it was a lot of fun, and I'm like, I love doing all those juxtapositions and mashing of ideas, but then I also wanted to do it like, you know, in a very tight, concise manner, so it's not all over the place, like, you know, there's definitely a really strong solid perspective, so like the whole record doesn't feel very schizophrenic where it's just all over the place. Like it's really solid, and I think it's a good example of how I just take all of these random ideas and then, okay, let's present something that's cohesive.
Yeah. Okay, so next up, I want to move on. Before we get to talking about the new direction that you're going to go in, I think something that always kind of builds that up is we're a music review page. That's what we do. And so I always want to hear when I talk to an artist, what is it that's inspiring you at this moment? What are you listening to? So if you could tell me, you know, 2 or 3 things that you're spinning right now that are giving you inspiration.
Oh my God, lots. That's a lot. So one of my favorite projects at the moment, is and they're relatively new. Is do you know Rob Rowe from Cause and Effect? You know the band Cause and Effect from back,
No,
like
but I'm going to look them up after this now.
early 90s synth pop project, but they're really really awesome, and Rob's really iconic. And my friend Vaughn and he created this band called VHNRR, which is really like, you know, their initials together. But it's a really awesome synth pop project. They're a lot more gothic, I think, in my more than they
Okay.
realize. But the cold wave synth pop, a little dark wave, you
You're
know,
speaking
and
my language right now.
very clever arrangements. They're such great writers, a great, you know, composers. And I really really love their vibe and their sound. They have a nice vibe. It's not it's kind of Jewel-esque. It's very,
Okay.
it's crystalline. I think that's the
Yeah.
best description. But they have a dark undercurrent, which I really love the contrast. And you know, and Rob's voice super sexy, super sexy. I love his voice. Like one of my favorite vocalists ever. Yeah. And then next one would be Linea Aspera. I always love Linea Aspera.
Yes.
I love Zoe Zanyas. I think she's quite an icon, you know,
Yeah.
and I love their minimalistic approach to their sound, you know, and I think she's a brilliant lyricist, actually.
Yeah.
Very intelligent, knows how to take uh, really like, I don't know how to describe it, but like, you know, I would listen to Synapse, and like, you know, there's always something scientific in her and her lyrics and that track. And then I always appreciate that, you know. And then and I love Crying Vessel. Crying Vessel is one of the
Yes.
bands that I discovered a couple of years ago. And I like, you know, their record, A Beautiful Curse, one of my favorite records. And, you know, Slade just has that nice vibe, nice voice. Also great lyricist, really, really great
Yeah.
lyricist. And also compositionally, like they have a, like they're dark wave, but still not like not your typical dark wave. There's a flavor to it, and I can't describe it, but it's like it's almost like really really nice fine wine. That's probably the
No,
best
I
way.
think that's great. Like Slade's a good friend, and I love it. And Basil, and I think to me, like when I've reviewed some of their albums before, especially this last Crying Vessel album that came up, I said you're taking your typical cold wave or dark wave, but
Mhm.
you were adding a Bowie razzmatazz on it.
Yeah.
That's the word I always say, is that like, and I think that's missing a lot in modern cold and dark wave music. A lot of times everybody wants to have the Ian Curtis voice, and you know, and a big part of goth and, you know, what would become dark wave and whatnot in the beginning was that people like this, like Bowie. There was a showmanship to it. There was an over the topness, you know, in lyrical delivery, or, you know, talk about a Morrissey or anybody like that, that I feel like gets kind of lost in the undercurrent a little bit right now. And I think that's one of the things that Slade is absolutely brilliant at, is the little showmanship on
Mhm.
top to give it some extra life, some flavor, or like you said, to make it more full bodied, to have a
Mhm.
better bouquet, like a
Right.
good glass of wine. So I
Yeah,
love
he does have a very Bowie-esque style in his vocals. And yeah, like I mean, the 80s I love, you know, vocalists like Susie Sue, Robert Smith. I mean, these they have that theatrical element. And I've always been obsessed with that. Like, you know, they're very expressive. Sometimes they make changes, like, you know, fluctuations in their intonations, like, you know, while they're singing. I love that. I really do. And I don't think we have enough of it. And you're right. Like, you know, it a lot of, and maybe this is just like, you know, how it is nowadays with, like, you know, with mainstream, where like right now, to be honest, I feel like mainstream music, a lot of the vocals all kind of sound the same. They're all
Sure.
the same. They're all processed the same. I was having an argument on Facebook about, like, I can't distinguish a difference between X and Y Z singers anymore. Like, you can
Sure.
throw me a new mainstream song and I don't know what, like I all seem, you know.
I think a lot of that has to do with the production aspects, because we've gotten so good technology wise of making easy to use interfaces in recording that they kind of do take away some of the subtlety of it and leave everybody feeling a little bit the same in sound, because everybody's using the same software, everybody's using it in the same way, and you just don't have as much tiny intricacy or knowledge base from a producer standpoint. I mean, it's different knowledge. You still have to know how to do that, but I think that has led to a little bit of flattening of the curve.
Right. And yeah, I agree. And like I feel like all these nuances are special, all the emotional cadences that you hear, like sometimes it all gets lost now. And I feel like with underground music, I there's still a huge part of underground that still tries to respect what that is, and I feel like that is underground now. Like, that's a huge way to differentiate between mainstream and underground, is that underground still does a good job in trying to make sure that a lot of that emotional integrity, like, in performances are, kept in place. And I think we do need more of that, and for vocalists to be less afraid, not,
Sure.
not to be perfect all the time. Sometimes it's like, sometimes like being perfectly imperfect. I think that should be the goal.
Yeah, no, we had a conversation on the Facebook group, the Sons and Shows Facebook group the other day, where I kind of brought that up, that I think that there is something to me so amazing when you have a great vocalist that really puts in the time to do whatever it takes. If it's 50 takes, 100 takes, it's going to be perfect. And then a producer who goes through in the same way to pick apart every aspect of that. And it just blows me away when I hear that, because to me, I'll take 5 takes on something, and if I'm not feeling it that day, I'm not feeling it that day, and I just walk away. I mean, I don't try. But I also think that a lot of times I'm comfortable leaving little scars or little breaths or little, because I think that adds a humanity to it, and I love hearing when other singers do that. But I don't think that like one way is better or worse than the other. It's a difference in how you come across it. And there are some amazing people out there, I'm not one of them, that can do both. And when you really hear that, it's just mesmerizing, And no, so I think that's great to like kind of think about that and talk about that, because there's a good debate on either side, I think, for how they're both valuable. But nowadays we do have, in the same way, anybody can have a studio in their bedroom or their basement without spending $50,000, I mean, and that does get a chance to lead to, like you said, some pretty far wing artistic expression that maybe never would have had a chance to get off the ground 20 years ago, when if you weren't a producer with a serious studio, you'd never get a good recording of that. And now anybody can plug it in with a laptop, and just a halfway decent mic and get a pretty solid sounding recording.
Absolutely. Yeah, technology is amazing right now, like really amazing. I mean, I don't know if I would have been able to produce records without it right now, because the last time I produced a record or worked on a record was almost 20 years ago, and that was a whole different world.
Animal, yeah.
A whole different world, yeah. And like, whoa, like, the difference now for sure. Like, it's empowering, because you can just go ahead and do it, and you don't have to rely on so many people, and you can just execute your vision exactly how you see it, and you have full control. And yeah, very different times.
Katy, do you have a parting shot? Because I want to go into talking a little bit into the change in direction that's going to be coming up. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add in?
No, I have something that I can say before we like close out, but at this point I have no follow-up questions.
Okay. So I wanted to ask because I saw on your Facebook, well, two interesting things on your Facebook the other day I want to talk
I
about.
always have interesting things on Facebook.
You do. You had two of them. But number one is saying that this new record coming up is going to be a complete change in sound for you. That you really aren't going to do the same kind of electronic, dancey type that you've had before. And I want you to talk a little bit about what led to this and what this new sound is going to be like. But then also, if you want to throw in, did you have something come up with Debbie Harry the other day?
Oh yeah, oh, that was my Blondie cover for her birthday. Yeah, I've been
I
sort
just
of,
love her, so I like hearing about it.
no, she's amazing, and she's kind of like she's like my fairy godmother, goddess, like and I've been really lucky that, and when I was starting the Zarina project, um, I became friends with two of Blondie's members, Matt Katz-Bowen, who's the synth and keys player, and Tommy Kessler, the lead guitarist. And they joined in the Zarina live band. So whenever I played live in New York, they were with me, and they were like, we love the project, like, they can, do you need help, like, with your live performances? I was like, yeah, let's do it, why not? And then of course Debbie heard that, that her boys have been like playing in my band, so she checked us out a few times, and I got introduced to her, and she's been really amazing. She's a guest of honor in my wedding, although she was drunk the night before, so she ended up having to pass on the reception and sending some gifts, really. But it's strange, and so I got asked to do a cover of Maria earlier this year by one of my really good friends in synthwave. His name is Runaway Droid, and and I was like, Debbie's birthday is coming on July 1st, so why don't we go ahead, do this recording, do this production, but let's wait until her birthday. And then we did not say anything. We just kept that whole thing in the DL, and then boom, July 1st. They're like, oh, by the way, here you go. Here's the Blondie cover. And of course, Matt and Tommy heard it, and Debbie heard it, and they all sent wonderful messages. And yeah,
That's gotta just feel
I just wanted to
awesome.
do something nice for her. Yeah, because I felt like, there was a moment when I felt like she was kind of following me around, because I would walk into a store and then suddenly Heart of Glass would be playing, or I'd walk into a restaurant, Call Me playing, and then, like when I was single, I'd go out on a date with a guy. I meet him Bumble, and then he's wearing a Blondie t-shirt, and I'm just like, this is so weird. And I finally got to meet her. So
Okay, now I really want to like read a manga or see an anime or something where your character that you're kind of doing and all that with the giant horns and the cyber helmet has Debbie Harry as their fairy godmother that
yeah.
like follows them around while they do their witchy techno shit.
Yeah,
Um, I,
that'd be cool.
yeah, we need to find a way to make this happen. I'm gonna reach out to some writers. We need to pen this. This is
Yeah, that'd be really awesome. Yeah, let's do it. They just
okay.
released a comic book, actually. They just released a comic book.
Blondie did, or
Yeah, Blondie has a comic book out. Yeah, and it's like,
I'll go look that up. That
yeah,
sounds awesome.
it's pretty cool.
I remember it was funny. I was at a pet shop, but no, it wasn't. It was a Eurasia show, and Andy was kind of telling a story and talking, and just hearing it, and he kind of had like this very, I mean, it was a pretty big crowd there, but he just has this way of intimately telling a story on the microphone in between songs and make you feel like you're just in a living room with him. And he's telling this story so normal about hanging out drinking champagne at like 8 a.m. with Debbie Harry or something, and I was just like, the same kind of thing as when you just said that. Like, I just have to imagine she has a literal magical energy. I just picture for her that if she is in a room, it is just like, waving her finger like a wand, and just things are happening. So
strange that she definitely, like, if you've never believed in vibes or aura before, you definitely start believing in it as soon as you meet her, because even I didn't know she was in the same room and I already felt the presence. Like, it's that kind of like strong energy. And yeah, it's really cool actually, but then
Yeah.
you meet her and she's just Debbie. She's really, really awesome. She's just really chill and cool. She'll have beer with you, stuff like that. And I thought it's, for someone who's had such a big life
Yeah.
and who's seen so much, done so much, and so down to earth, I think like that, my perception of celebrity has really changed when I met her.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
oftentimes you'll hear the story of like, I met my idol and it didn't go well. And it's really reassuring to know that there is someone who I also idolize quite a bit, who's a genuinely nice person.
Yeah, that's important, I think, and it's very relevant these days.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did throw that in at the last second on the question there, and we took a right turn. But going back, you're talking about doing a big change for you artistically in the vision and the sound here. What precipitated this, and what's that change going to look like?
And like what I said earlier, it's the change was prompted by my move to Spain
Yeah.
and being in touch with the culture here, being in touch with just the whole vibe, and and also the same thing with Debbie. For some reason, this region has such an interesting energy, and yeah, if you didn't believe in fairy tales when you were young, you definitely believe in fairy tales if you moved here. It's just so pure and magical, and I don't know, I got really overwhelmed when I started getting a tour of my new home and how protected it was. The Spanish government did a good job protecting, like, their lands and their waters,
Mhm.
and what I love about Galicia is it's so low key, and you don't really hear about this region too much. Like, it's not always talked about. Like, people know it, of course, was being
Sure.
paint, but it's so underrated, and that's what I love about it. It's like, wow, it's mind-blowing. It definitely has all I don't know, like all these cosmic wonders. I know I sound really weird right
No,
now,
no,
but
there
like,
is a
but
power to
you're
secrets. There
right.
are, and like the fact that it kind of has a secretness to it it
Right.
has a power and an
And it's
energy.
like, and I don't know if you've heard about the time earlier this winter when all of Spain and Portugal basically got dumped in snow. I don't know if you guys saw that in the news, but then the only one region in that area that did not get touched by snow was Galicia. All of Galicia in the
Huh.
northwest corner. And it's just like, okay, like there's something going on here. And so that definitely prompted change. And then also i I wanted to be much truer to myself as an artisan, as a creative. And growing up, I was listening to a lot of Nine Inch Nails. I was listening to a lot of Tool, A Perfect Circle, like, Ministry, like.
Sure.
So there are a lot of harder elements that I love, and proggy elements for sure. So I wanted to kind of go back to a little bit of that, as that kind of songwriting where it's a lot more deep in nature, also a lot more mathematical when it comes to composition
Yeah.
and rhythmically, and there's a lot of nerdiness. So I am bringing a lot of what that is, a lot of those technical elements in songwriting into this record. We're talking lots of polyrhythm and drums, odd meters, and all done in a way that's subtle, so you can still vibe to it. And I don't want people to listen to this as though they're listening to like a really, really super mathematical, like proggy rock record. I still want it to be like fluid, and
Yeah.
but I did want to bring in a lot more of that cerebral nature, and also that magical nature of my new home, and kind of combine it into a sound it still has some electronic elements to it. So I thought that that nice trifecta of ideas could work really, really well. And also in terms of visuals, I went from like super like cyberpunk 80s retro wave anime, like, you know, very more 80s, more what do you call it, more Blade Runner type of aesthetic back then in when I first debuted this record. Now I'm going more cosmic. I mean, I don't know how to explain it.
No, I like that, and I think that's cool. And I'll tell you what, I think the complexity of just how many, I don't know, different aspects there are to your life and how they fit together, that really excites me for this album coming up, and hearing a blending of all those things. Because frankly, well, in particular for me, everything that you talked about is all shit I'm into. And then to put that together into one big dirty snowball, like that just sounds awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm all about that. Like, you know, it's always hard for me to go about songwriting and be like, you know what, I need like just a simple four on the floor, dark, wavy, gothic, like, you know, banger. Like some people really process that way and they do it in a beautiful, magnificent way. Whereas me, it's always like, no, I need to have another layer. I need to give it another angle, you know? And I feel like it's not me otherwise. Does
yeah.
that make sense? Like, I feel
No,
like,
it does. Like that is very relatable. Like we're the same way in the sense that our problem is not coming up with enough complexity. It's knowing what I can cut away at the end.
Mhm.
That is the hard part, is finding like, did you really need 36 overlapping guitar tracks here? So no, I hear you. And I think there's more than one way to sculpt in that way. And I love the idea of, I picture a visual of you, especially with some of these looks and aesthetics that you have, kind of taking a sound and a little chisel and hammer and slowly peeling layers away to add more definition to it. And I think that's very cool, and I think very understandable for you. So when we're rolling out here, we'll roll out the new single, Wonderland, and I'm really excited for the album coming out. Everybody stay tuned to listen into this and hear kind of the first breath into the new sound. And Sarina, I'm just excited and geeked to see what the future holds for you and everything happening there. Katy, did you have any parting thoughts?
Given what you have put out in the past and this incredible fashion history that you have, I am excited and eager for what's to come, because what you've described of like a symphonic dark electronic album is something that I don't think that I've heard in a way that I've like been able to cling to many times, but I'm very confident that I will with what you're doing. So thank you for existing.
Thank you so much. That makes me happy.
All right. So from all of us here at Sounds and Shadows, to all of you out there in interwebs land, this has been the Sounds and Shadows podcast. Keep it dark, yo. This is Wonderland from CZARINA.